For instance, so the story I'll give is that Semyon and I went on a tour of Europe at one point and showed up at the casino at Monte Carlo and only lasted for, what, an hour? About an hour. At which point I went into the restroom to write down some information about our play. We're very meticulous about keeping records on the team in order to credit people. And the way that you're making money, it's not that everyone gets home at the end of the trip and you split the money equally. You're trying to estimate what everybody's certainty equivalent of their expected value is in order to split the money. So we're keeping careful records, and I'm trying to come back to the table, and I'm pulled away by some very nice looking goons at the Monte Carlo casino who don't let me go back to the table. And finally, Semyon and Andy Block, who are playing with me at the Monte Carlo, started looking around. Why was it taking me so long? And they basically tried to escort us all away from the table, and then brought us behind a glass door, I think, into an office where they could send our pictures to the Griffin Detective Agency in Las Vegas to get us positively ID'd. All the time pretending that they did not know any English. And then searched our car, we're not sure for what, and drove us to the local jail where we ended up spending several hours. So I have a police record and officially am barred from ever re-entering the Principality of Monaco, as I understand it.
Well, that was a pretty scary story for me as well.
Even more so for you, yeah.
Yeah, I was. They definitely tried to scare us, but a much more scary story personally on the Blackjack trip was an incident in a two-seater Cessna 152 where a rather reckless and poorly trained co-player pilot smashed it into a wall and caught fire, and suffered some injuries and things.
You must have had money at that time.
We did have money, and we did go back to get the money from the burning plane. That part of the Busting Vegas book mentions that story, and that story is true. Yeah, that was pretty scary. I was somewhat afraid of flying for a while after that, but I can brag a little bit. I'm proud to say I now got my helicopter pilot license, and to
I guess the worst casino experience I had was we'd been playing for quite a while during the night, and it must have been about 4 in the morning maybe, and we'd just gotten back to our room and just fallen asleep when all of a sudden we were woken up, and a whole bunch of us were sharing quite a large suite, and we were rudely taken out of our beds and told to quickly pack, and a whole bunch of us had to leave the suite very quickly and as fast as we could get out of the casino. And it was, I think, a 4th of July weekend, and we met way down the street in a diner or something, and I think that was a weekend the team was compromised. Something.
So they didn't come into our bedroom. They just knocked on the door and made loud noises, and we quickly packed and snuck out a different door that they weren't expecting. And Debbie and I actually got away, sort of without having to go through their security wall. Generally, they tried to intimidate a few people, but again, in the U.S., which we stuck to after a while, the casinos used to beat up and kill people, in the 50s and stuff like that. But once they became Wall Street companies, they couldn't risk those kinds of lawsuits, and that's why I think they stopped hurting people. And I heard of people that had been beat up years before we played, but in our time, they did physically intimidate people, bring people to back rooms and sort of make it seem like they give them a hard time and scared some people. But nobody in our experience in the U.S. really got touched, other than I generally didn't feel intimidated. I was a little bigger, let's say, and I started a karate club at a campus which still exists. So I was kind of stupid,
really quickly. I've been barred more times than I can remember, but one time stands out in particular. I was with John Chang, common element to many of these stories, at Caesar's Palace, and John and I had played for a long time there without getting kicked out, and then we started to have some trouble, so we went in and played together and did some things, and that attracted attention. I think it was doubling on some stiff. It wasn't the double 19 story, that's another story, but we doubled in like 13 or something and happened to get a 7, you know, I mean, these things happen. And anyway, we immediately got the heat, and as I had trained many players, when there's heat going on, you just want to make a line to the nearest exit, and I was doing that. I got my chips and out the door, and in between the doors of Caesar's, this guy who had to be like a head taller than me. Okay, and he puts his hand on my shoulder and says, "Come with me." And there's 2 security guards, and you know, make a long story short, you end up going with them. Okay, that's and they never threatened me in any way. But we went down this kind of corridor at Caesar's that was no longer part of the public area, and I ended up in this cement room, and you know, we've all been there. And yeah, we've all been there. There was something about this particular time, though, about this guy. You got to understand, you know, I'm not short, and this guy is like seriously this tall, and, you know, big guy, 2 security guards, and you know, take your picture against the height bar and read you like the riot act, this Miranda type thing, and off you go. Just that time sticks in my mind. So.
I guess the scariest time for me was when I was actually out in Las Vegas, and this was late 1970s, when the casinos were, at that time, not public companies yet. And I was playing in one of the casinos and winning pretty heavily. And the pit boss came up to me and taps me on the shoulder, and he says, "You know, you've got some pretty nice hands there." And I said, "Yeah, I guess I'm just getting pretty lucky. You know, I don't know, I just seem to be pulling some great hands." And he says, "No, I don't mean your cards, I'm talking about your hands." And I kind of looked at him like, I had no idea what he was saying, and he said, "You know, if you had no fingers, you'd have a pretty hard time playing this game, wouldn't you?" And honestly, I was just out of college, and I kind of looked at him and just got out of there as fast as I could.
Where was that? Tropicana.
Right, stay away from traffic.
So I don't have a very scary, I'll tell a kind of funny, tiny scary story, but there was one time where John Chang, again, this factors in every story. John Chang is probably a third of Mickey Rosa, by the way, so he's one of the Mickey Rosa guys. John and Steve and I were going to go down to Foxwoods, this Steve, and John was recognized instantly in Foxwoods, so...
Wait. There's a little bit more to it. What did John look like?
Oh, well, that's what I was getting to. So, you know, we did wear disguises. John wore a lot of disguises. So, John borrowed Bill's wife's clothes.
You borrowed my wife's clothes.
Oh, okay, John's all right. Someone's wife's
We
clothes.
picked them up at Bill's house, though.
Oh, okay, then it was Bill's wife's clothes.
And
Oh, yeah.
I swear, though, John was the worst-looking guy in drag I ever saw. All right. Well, I didn't dress him, but we got down to Foxwoods, and all the pit bosses were basically laughing at John. And we called other people over to go, look at this guy playing. And, you know, his hands, you know, you got to use your hands. His hands, you couldn't disguise his hands. They were clearly not. Anyway, it just didn't fit. So we played for about 10 minutes, and then we left because John was feeling so comfortable. We went to a pizza place nearby. And there I was scared because people were looking at us. I thought they were going to beat us up. Because, you know, and fortunately Steve was a big guy and karate guy, so I kind of felt safe. But I was more scared outside the casino than inside.